Hey guys! Oh wait, there's a smudge on the camera. Hang on.
She's calling me, like the rainbow. She's calling me, like the rainbow, the rainbow.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Vicent, and today we've got a real truck? I'm not sure. I've had requests that I review a real vehicle lately. And I think by that they mean trucks, as these are all truck people asking this. So is this a real truck? I posted this picture on Instagram and I actually got a response that this isn't a real truck. So I started to ask myself, what quantifies a real truck? Now, a real truck must be quantified by the size of its engine, right? Well, if that's the case, then this is not a real truck, as this has a 3.6 liter V6 producing about 280 horsepower. So it can't be a real truck because of that, right? Okay, well, you got me. So Jeep is going to come out with a diesel version later this year, but as for now, all Jeep Gladiators come with the 3.6 liter V6. So if it's not the engine, how about towing capacity? So the towing capacity is 6,000 pounds on this car. And actually its payload is first in class, 1,600 pounds. First in class for a not real truck? I'm still confused as to what classifies this as a truck or not a truck. It has a bed. I'm gonna call this a truck. So this is Jeep's foray back into the truck world. So those of you that don't know, Jeep actually used to produce a truck called the Comanche. So Jeep actually stopped production of the Comanche in 1992. And all the Jeep Nation kind of lost their mind, wanted a truck back. And Jeep listened 30 years later. So why don't we take a look at the feature that kind of classifies this as a truck. I swear by the time this video is done, I will know whether this is a real truck or not. And that's the bed. So this specific model has a cool feature that Jeep puts out called the tonneau cover. Now this specific cover, and I'm going to close this again, this cover cannot be accessed while the tailgate's up. So it kind of makes it a trunk, right? You can store some pretty precious cargo in there, and in fact the only way to get through this is to cut through the top. Once the gate is down, however, it's a pretty typical one, and this rolls back just like any other cover in most vehicles. You simply pull these red tabs and roll it all the way back, and you have access to the truck itself. Before we run away from this area of the truck, non-truck, I'm just going to start calling it a vehicle. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this a vehicle. Before we run away from this part of the vehicle, one cool feature back here is a traditional outlet. So you can pretty much plug in anything. So if you're out in the wilderness doing what Jeep folks do, you can plug in a radio, you can plug in your phone, make sure it stays charged, or pretty much any number of things that you want. There's a little button inside that activates this. It does have a weatherproof cover here, so you don't have to worry about any water damage getting in there at all. One of the things that often makes Jeep a Jeep is that big spare tire on the back, and I know a lot of Jeep enthusiasts don't like this. But because this is a truck, they can't mount it on the back because it does have a tailgate. So the tire is down below. One thing you'll notice on the back side of the truck here is we do have some rock guards. This is truly a Jeep in all senses of the term. Now for those of you that go off-roading, you already know this, but those of you that don't, typically a longer wheelbase on a car makes it more difficult to off-road, but this one is actually very capable off-road. Through mud, through rock, it really doesn't matter. This really maintains this Jeep name. One more thing you guys may notice is a lot of the red accents surrounding this car. That isn't just a color scheme on the Jeep. It's specific to the Rubicon version of this. If you get the red trim on the interior, they add all these kind of cool red accents to the remainder of the car, regardless of body color. So there are actually red Jeeps out there with red accents, which makes no sense because you can't see them. One thing you're going to see all over this car, guys, and you know how much I hate them, is a bunch of little fake vents. I mean, I'm not, you know what, let's not even talk about it. So in typical Jeep fashion, they don't have a typical hood release on the interior of the car. They have these levers on the outside. I mean, these are pretty dope. And there she is, all 3.6 liters of glorious V6 power. Although Jeep, I don't know in a car like this if it was worth saving the weight and not having hydraulic lifters on this hood versus a little stick. But you know, I love the 90s too. It's fine. While we're taking a look at the engine, why don't we take a listen to it too? Let's talk styling on this vehicle. It does stay true to its roots and that Jeep design language. It's got very harsh angles. It's very vertical. In a typical truck, when you're out on the freeway, you feel bigger than everybody else. You feel like you can move any car out of your way. This one, you don't necessarily feel like you can move them out of your way. You just kind of feel like you could go over anything in your way. It's very vertical. You feel very tall. Even the seating position on the inside, which we'll take a look at later, you feel very tall inside. You've got a lot of angles and punch outs and various scoops that makes this car seem a little aggressive and mean. And truthfully, that's just the way Jeep wants this. They want it to look a little more aggressive, something that you can take off-road. We have Fox suspension on all four corners, making it so you can go off-road. Again, this is a very capable truck living up to that Jeep name. One last feature I forgot to mention earlier is that this is a convertible. Yeah, a convertible truck. And it's a convertible truck straight from the factory. Now, to remove the top is actually pretty simple. There are 4 clips on the interior on each side as this is split down the middle. The front half comes off, and then it's the back half. Now, the back half is one solid piece, and it's not quite as simple. There are some tools you need, and that's because of the electronics in the rear window. The doors do come off, just as they would in a normal Jeep. You just unlatch some of the electronics here and pull this off. Now, an interesting feature that maybe some of you that have never been in a Jeep know is because of that, a lot of the buttons you find on a typical door are not present here. In fact, you can't roll down your windows through your doors. Those are all in the center control panel there, and a lot of the buttons you do find on the door, as in your door locks, are also redundant on the center console. Now, this being the Rubicon, it is a little bit lifted, so if you're vertically challenged, you'll have a little bit more difficulty getting in the car, but they do have these grab handles that you just use and kind of pull yourself into the car. It does have its holy hell handles just about everywhere. You've got them on the, and I know it's not holy hell handles, we're keeping it PG here, folks. We've got them on the A pillars as well as on the B pillars here. Interior wise, it's your typical Jeep. You've got some decent materials here, some softer plastics, and this is not metal, although it's going to look like it does look like some aluminum trim here. It's just a plastic, but I love the circle and square, the kind of meaty raw design of it all. We've got exposed bolts everywhere, and I dig this interior. It really is a pretty cool one. You've got some aluminum knobs, and again, they're continuing that little red theme throughout with the stitching as well as the minor touches here and there. You've got enough room for 5 passengers, and I'm 6 foot tall. I've got more than ample room above my head. There's plenty of room here in front, and as you saw, I was just sitting in the front seat. So this is a typical position for a passenger, and this is an extremely comfortable ride. I could go on some pretty long trips on here. Storage is incredible. Not only do you have the bed, underneath these seats you have locking storage compartments, so you can use your key and lock it up and nobody can get in. There's quite a bit down there. Also, these seats fold up, so if you wanted to throw some gear back here and not mess up your leather, you can do that as well. Also, again, being a Jeep, you do have locking differentials, so you've got front and rear, or rear only by a switch here. You've got your 4 high and 4 low. One thing that made me laugh in the vehicle is this button here, which I'm only pointing out because of how humorous it was. And it says screen off. And you'll notice in this video here, even when you push the screen off, it doesn't actually go off. It just goes black. But that screen is definitely still on. And at night it's more apparent than during the day. It just makes me laugh that they took the time to create a button that says screen off that doesn't actually work. But I must applaud Jeep. It's better than, I guess, a blank switch.
It's calling me like the rainbow. It's calling me
notice in driving the Gladiator, it's not fast. It's not even remotely fast. Now that's not the point of this car, I know. But anybody who owns a Jeep, if they use the word zippy or quick or anything that resembles this car getting off the line and moving quickly, they're lying. In fact, you could say to their face they're lying. The car's 0 to 60 is 8.6 seconds. My original idea was actually to have this and the Tesla go head to head in a quarter mile. When I saw the numbers, I thought, well, maybe we'll see how much ahead on that quarter mile track I'd have to put this before the Tesla would lose. And really, I started to think I'd probably have to put it halfway down the track, and that just didn't make any sense, so we didn't do it. Having the suspension that it does, you really don't feel any of the potholes in the road, you don't feel any of those type of things, but because these tires are so much larger, it's a loud noise. You definitely hear them on the ground, but it feels great. You really don't hear anything, and you feel like you own the road. You know, I mentioned verticality when I was talking about the design earlier. It's got a lot of straight up and down line. You feel like you own the road at this height. There are friends of mine that said this isn't a real truck, as I've been making jokes throughout this video. But you know, I've been next to a F-150, I've been next to a Silverado, and even a Tundra, and you don't feel small next to those trucks. And I think it's because this one's lifted a little bit. So you still are looking eye to eye, and in many cases, I'm actually looking down at those trucks versus any other. It is obviously shorter. It's more in line with your Tacomas and Rangers, I know, rather than the full-size trucks, but it doesn't feel small in any way, shape, or form. Interior-wise, again, I love this design. The circles, the squares, the real rugged industrial look, the exposed bolts everywhere, I think are fantastic. You're not going to be unhappy if you have this as your daily driver, or your weekend crawler, or your get out of town and go camping machine. You know, I mentioned earlier how this lives up to the Jeep name, and I'm going to say that it does in all facets, including how sluggish it feels. Jeeps are not known as quick vehicles, and this is no different. So one feature on this vehicle, like most vehicles in this class, it does have the engine start-stop. And if you're like me, it's going to drive you absolutely crazy every time the engine turns off at every red light. I drove yesterday on the freeway with the top off. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw that. It is surprisingly quiet inside. I would have figured it would have been pretty loud with the top off, especially on the freeway, and it wasn't. It was actually fairly calm and collected. We opened the back window, the air was flowing right through, and there wasn't hardly a peep in the interior. You'll notice something else in the exterior design, and that's the notch in those rear doors. That's because they come directly from the Wrangler. They didn't actually create new doors for this. Now, Jeep says it's from a cost-cutting measure, but what you'll find is you have those odd little windows in the back. So you have one window that rolls down and then a little sliver of a window behind it. But again, this really lives up to the Jeep name. There's nothing in here that I would say is not fun. It's a blast to drive. I've mentioned once before, speed does not always equal fun, and this is a lot of fun. I've had a few folks behind the wheel, and each one says the same thing. You just have a little bit of a smile on your face driving around with this. It's just a little bit of fun. It's a Jeep. Jeeps are meant to be fun. That's the whole reason they exist, is to go off-road and to give you an adventure. This one lives up to that. Truck or not? I suppose that's the next question I should answer. I understand why a lot of people would classify this as not a real truck. It doesn't have that meaty big V8. It's not your full-size F-150. But guys, for 99.9% of us, this is a real truck. And for you who are measuring a truck based on the size of its engine or the size of its bed or the size of its towing capacity, I think this one might surprise you. It's fun to drive. It's got great looks. It tows. You can put a bunch in the bed. You don't feel like a small truck on the road. Honestly, I'm impressed. And I think you will be too. Well guys, I think that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please smash that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button below and the little bell icon so you can be notified the next time I upload a video. And for you folks out there who still say, this isn't a real truck, maybe the next one I drive will be. I'll see you guys in the next one.
It's calling me.